Good afternoon. In yesterday's lecture, we started with the topic plan and construction of Kent repertory. In that, we studied that there are 7 chapters, and in detail about those chapters, we will study in today's lecture. So, there are 7 sections, chapters in this repertory. The first chapter is mind and intellect. Second chapter is parts of body and organ. Third chapter is sensation and complaints. Fourth chapter is sleep and dreams. Fifth chapter is fever. Then sixth chapter is alteration in the state of health. And the seventh chapter is relationship of remedy. In this repertory, as we know that we have already discussed that in the original work of Dr. Boning Hussain, there are about 126 remedies. Then afterwards, when Dr. T.F. Allen he go through Boning Hussain's repertory, then he reconstruct it, he subtracted, he removed 4 remedies from his previous work and he added 220 new remedies in the work of Boning Hussain in this repertory. So now the edition which we are using, that is Allen's edition, and in that edition of BTPB we have about 342 remedies to study. So this was the frequently asked question in oral examination as well as for 2 marks. How many remedies are there in original work of Boning Hussain and in Allen's edition? So there are 126 remedies in original work of Boning Hussain. Dr. Allen he added 220 remedies and subtracted 4 remedies. So now the yes. So now whatever edition we have about 342 remedies. So in the Allen's edition, in American edition, we have 342 remedies. Then in this repertory is having 3 parts. The first part is the principles and practicability of Boning Hussain's therapeutic pocket book, or it is also called as introductory or philosophical part. For homeopathic physicians to use at bedside and in the study of materia medica, this book, this repertory, it was very much helpful. And in the first part of this book, it contains first there is preface, then the life history of Dr. Boning Hussain it was given, and how Dr. Boning Hussain he converted towards homeopathy. All the history about his life and how he converted towards homeopathy it was given after preface. Then how to use the repertory it was given. Then the art of physician in taking the case. Then philosophical background of this repertory. Then construction of the repertory, how this repertory was constructed was given after philosophical background. Then limitations and lastly adaptability was given, and in it 5 cases are explained how to repertorize using BTPB. Then use of analysis is given in detail. So in this way, in the first part of this book, it is also called as introductory or philosophical part, because in this part, introduction about the preface is first preface is given, then life history of Dr. Boni Hussain, how he converted towards homeopathy, then how to use the repertory, and then all about this repertory, that is art of physician in taking the case, then philosophical background of this repertory, then construction, plan construction of this repertory, then limitations of the repertory and adaptability of the repertory. It was given in detail in the first part of this repertory, as well as the 5 cases are explained how to repertorize using BTPB. Then use of analysis is given in detail. Then the second part of this repertory, it is nothing but the second part of this book was nothing but the repertory part, and the name of this part was Boning Hussain's Therapeutic Pocket Book for Homeopathic Physicians to use at the bedside in the study of Materia Medica, which was reconstructed by adding new medicines, by subtracting some medicines from original work, as well as by reconstructing rubrics. It was published by Timothy Field Allen. It was reconstructed by Timothy Field Allen. Then in this part, the preface to New American Edition it was given. Then Boning Hussein's original preface is written. This part of repertory proper, as we discussed earlier, that this repertory proper part, it is divided into 7 main chapters or 7 main sections. In these chapters, as Dr. Boning Hussain, he does not give much importance to mind. He was using the symptoms related to mind for final differentiation of medicine. So, in his repertory, in the first chapter, that is mind and intellect, very few rubrics we have found. Only 36 rubrics are there in the section mind and intellect, and number of pages covered are only 8. Arrangement of rubrics in this section is alphabetical, and no subchapters are there in this chapter. So mind and intellect chapter, there is no subchapters, and also we found a very less number of rubrics related to mind and intellect in this repertory. About 18 out of there are about total number of rubrics in this section are about 36. Out of those, number of rubrics related to mind are 18, and number of rubrics related to intellect are 17, and there is one concomitant. he gave only important rubrics related to mind under this part. So there are so very less number of rubrics we found under this first chapter. And in addition to this, in aggravation section, under excitement rubric, it consists of 17 mental expressions, and other than this, one more rubric, exertion mental, are given. So in this way, in section aggravation, we found some rubrics related to mind. And as there are very few number of rubrics related to mind in this repertory, and due to this, many homeopaths have criticized the lack of mental symptoms listed therein. But as we know that Moning Hussein's work is based on, or he having, Dr. Moning Hussein, he was having some different concepts. He considered the whole man, placing the balance of emphasis on the value of concomitant symptoms and modalities. And it was its stand that solid basis of the four square foundation was the only method of securing the totality of the case. So to secure the or to form the proper totality of the case, the four square foundation was necessary, that is location, sensation, modality and concomitant of the symptoms. It was necessary. We must consider that those or that four square foundation, and he considered the, or he gave less importance to the symptoms related to mind. So in his repertory also we found very less number of rubrics in the mind and intellect section. There are some misplaced rubrics also, like vertigo and unconsciousness in this section. Then the second part of this repertory is parts of body and organ. As we know that in this section, in this chapter, there are about 32 subchapters, and the chapters are arranged according to Hahnemannian scheme and not according to philosophy, that is location, sensation, modality or concomitant, but they are arranged according to Hahnemannian scheme, according to anatomical division of the body, as like it was arranged in Kent repertory. But the rubrics, we found there is no definite order. Number of rubrics in this section are about 847. Then number of pages covered by this chapter are about 118. The rubrics are arranged alphabetically, as we discussed that there are subchapters in this chapter and they are about 118. Sorry, extremely sorry. There are 32 subchapters, and the subchapters which start from the subchapter head. The first subchapter is head, and the 32nd or the last subchapter is lower extremities. So in the head there are again four subsections, that is internal head, external head, then internal head sides and external head sides. Then the second chapter is eyes. In eyes chapter there are two subchapters. First one is eyes and second one is vision. Then ears. In ears there are again two subchapters. The first one is eyes and second one is hearing. Then nose. After third chapter, that is ear, there is then hearing, then nose. For nose chapter also there are two subchapters, that is nose and smell. After nose, smell, there is face chapter. For face chapter also there are two subchapters, that is face and locations of sensation. Then the teeth chapter, it does not have any subchapter. Then mouth chapter, it also doesn't have any subchapter. Then throat, it also doesn't have any subchapter. Then mouth, after that the mouth and faces, it is having five subchapters, that is mouth and faces, hunger and thirst, taste, then eructation, then nausea and vomiting. The abdomen chapter, it is also having seven subchapters, that is internal abdomen, external abdomen, abdomen sides, then hypochondria sides, abdominal rings, flatulency, stool. In this way, in abdomen chapter there are seven subchapters. Then urinary organs, it is having three subchapters, that is urinary organs, then urine, micturition, and sexual organs chapter, it is also having three subchapters, that is sexual organs, both male and female, menstruation, euphoria. Then respiration, it is having three subchapters, that is respiration, cough and air passage. Then external throat and neck, it is having two subchapters, external throat and neck and nape of neck sides. Then chest, it doesn't have any subchapter. Back also doesn't have any subchapter. Then extremities, it is having two subchapters, that is upper extremities and lower extremities. So in this way, these are the divisions of the different sections in this second part of the repertory or second chapter of the repertory, that is parts of body and organs. So in that part there are 32 subchapters. These subchapters are also having some subdivisions under these subchapters, and how or which subchapters having subdivisions we discussed just now. So how these chapters are arranged from head to lower extremity. So first section is head. In that, internal head, external head, then eyes, then vision, ears, hearing, nose, smell, face, teeth, then mouth, then throat, then hunger and thirst. 13th chapter is taste, then eructation, then nausea and vomiting, then abdomen chapter. In that, internal and external abdomen, then flatulence, stool, urinary organs, urine, micturition, sexual organs, menstruation, euphoria, respiration, cough, air passages, external throat and neck, then chest. In that again internal and external, then back, then upper extremities, and lastly lower extremities. So in this sequence from head to lower extremities, all the subchapters they are arranged properly so that we can easily able to find out the rubric according to the arrangement of the subchapters in this part. Then the third part is sensation and complaints. In this part, it consists of different subjective sensation, objective sensation, and complaints. All these are placed alphabetically and not as a separate section. This part is divided into sensation in general, then sensation of glands, sensation of bones, and sensation of skin. So in this way, in this subchapter, that is sensation and complaints, there are again four divisions, that is sensation and complaints in general, of glands, of bones, and of skin. Number of rubrics in this subsection is 825. 825. Then number of pages covered by this sensation and complaint chapter or subchapter are 94. The rubrics in this subchapter, they are not arranged alphabetically, and as we discussed in this chapter, subjective sensation or subjective symptom, objective symptom, and few locations we found in this section. So what are subjective symptoms? So the subjective symptoms are nothing but the symptoms which are felt by the person. So as for example, desire for open air, then aversion to open air, intolerance of clothing, inclination to lying down. So these are the subjective symptoms. Then objective symptoms means we can observe these symptoms. These are called as objective symptoms. As for example, blackness externally, then clumsiness or awkwardness, cyanosis. So these are objective symptoms. Then location,
Yeah.
under location, symptoms on one side, then left-sided symptom, then right-sided symptoms, and then crosswise symptoms. It was given under location. Exact location with the side it was given under location. Then complaints. What are complaints? As for example, apoplexy. What is apoplexy? Means sudden neurologic impairment due to cerebrovascular disorder or convulsion or consumption, the patient act of consuming or the process of being consumed. Then dropsy or edema, emaciation or excessive weakness, a wasted condition of the body. So these are the complaints. So under sensation, there are subjective, objective, and location we also considered, and complaints. In that we discussed about the examples. Then the next chapter or the next part, fourth part of this repertory is sleep and dreams. This section, it covers the symptoms related to mind, the symptoms related to sleep, all the symptoms related to sleep. As for example, yawning, sleepiness, and these symptoms are explained with their modifications as well as positions in the sleep and dreams. So, in this chapter, we get the symptoms like yawning, sleepiness, sleeplessness with various modifications, then positions in sleep and dream. Number of rubrics in this section are 94 and number of pages covered by this section are about 12. So this is the small chapter or small section of the book, and it cover only 94 rubrics, or in this chapter, in this part only 94 rubrics are there, and it cover about 12 pages. It is having 3 sub-chapters, that is sleep, position in sleep, and dreams. Then the 5th chapter is fever. Under fever, in the older edition, there were 7 subsections or subparts under the section or chapter fever, and how these parts are given as the first part or first subsection of the chapter fever are circulation of blood. Under that it include conditions such as anemia, congestion, etc. Then the second subchapter is cold stage. Then the third subchapter is coldness, then heat, then perspiration, then compound fever, and then lastly concomitant symptoms. So in this way, there are about 7 subchapters and they are arranged according to they are arranged in a proper order. That is, first one is circulation of blood, second one is cold stage, then coldness, then heat, perspiration, compound fever, and concomitant complaints. In this chapter, there are about 116 rubrics are there, and the number of pages covered by this chapter fever are about 19. The arrangement of rubric is not alphabetical, and as we know, the number of subchapters in this part or in this chapter are 7. Then the next sixth chapter is alteration in the state of health. So alteration in the state of health is nothing but the modalities, the aggravating and ameliorating factors. In that, first aggravation related to time, then aggravation related to situation and circumstances, and lastly ameliorations related to position and circumstances. It was given. While giving the aggravations according to time, he follow some order like that of Kent repertory. The rubrics, sub-rubrics related to time, they are arranged in proper way, in proper sequence. That is, modalities during the day, morning, forenoon, then at noon, then afternoon, evening, night, four part of night, after midnight, and lastly periodicity. In this way, for arranging the aggravations or rubrics related to time aggravation, there is some again a definite order to write down the rubrics. Then rubrics related to aggravations related to situations and circumstances. Lot of rubrics are given under this section